In the first video of this series, I explained the model for ACT described as the Hexaflex. In that video, all the elements of Hexaflex are parts of a good life, a life filled with emotion, compassion, and love. A life guided by values and acted upon with actions guided by these values. In this video, we will look at what the opposite entails. Before we begin our journey into what is not good, it is important to notice a few things. The stuff that we are exploring in ACT is not a diagnostic system. It is not about being sick or having a diagnosis. It is purely about life. And life is about a lot of different happenings. Some are good, some are not desirable, and some are painful. In ACT we state that everybody goes through times of pain, loss, or grief. Not one of us can pass this by. So the question is not what you experience in your life, but rather how you choose to deal with whatever you experience. So with this in mind, please try to take the following as directions, or as guides to a change. If you should experience your own life as more troublesome than I describe it here, feel free to seek up an ACT therapist for more help. So let us dive into the different parts of the Hexaflex once again, but this time with a little different angle. First, a little description of the psychological rigid person. Rigid personality, also known as inflexible or stuck personality, is a term used in acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, to describe a set of behaviors and thought patterns that limit a person's ability to adapt, to change, and cope with the challenges of life. People with a rigid personality tend to be highly rule-bound and perfectionistic, which can lead to an excessive focus on details and a reluctance to take risks or try new things. They may become upset, frustrated, anxious, or overwhelmed when faced with uncertainty or change, and may struggle to adapt to new situations or experiences. For example, someone with a rigid personality may struggle to cope with unexpected changes in their daily routine, such as a sudden change in their work schedule or a change in plans with friends. They may become upset or frustrated when things don't go according to plan, and may have difficulty finding alternative solutions or adapting to the new situation. This rigidity can also impact relationships, as people with a rigid personality may struggle to compromise or see things from another person's perspective. They may become defensive or argumentative when challenged, and may have difficulty empathizing with others or understanding their feelings. In ACT therapy, clients with a rigid personality are encouraged to practice mindfulness and acceptance of their thoughts and feelings, rather than trying to control or suppress them. This can help them to develop greater emotional flexibility and resilience, allowing them to better adapt to changes and cope with difficult situations. Clients are also encouraged to identify their values and set goals based on those values, rather than on rigid rules or expectations. By focusing on what is truly important to them, clients can develop greater motivation and a sense of purpose, and can work towards creating a more fulfilling life. Ultimately, the goal of ACT therapy is to help clients with a rigid personality develop greater psychological flexibility, allowing them to adapt to changing circumstances, connect more deeply with others, and live a more meaningful and fulfilling life. In the first video of this series, I explained the model for ACT described as the Hexaflex. In that video, all the elements of Hexaflex are parts of a good life, a life filled with emotion, compassion, and love. A life guided by values and acted upon with actions guided by these values. In this video, we will look at what the opposite entails. Acceptance has the opposite, experiential avoidance. Defusion has the opposite, cognitive fusion. Self as context has the opposite, self as content. Present has the opposite, past/future. Values has the opposite, lack of direction. And committed action has the opposite, inaction/stuck. If we do not work with acceptance, we are very likely to work with experiential avoidance. Experiential avoidance is a core concept in acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT, that refers to the tendency of individuals to avoid or escape from uncomfortable or distressing thoughts, feelings, or experiences. Avoidance can take many forms, including physical withdrawal, distraction, substance use, or behavioral avoidance. While avoidance may provide temporary relief from distress, it ultimately reinforces negative patterns of behavior and prevents individuals from engaging fully in life. By avoiding difficult experiences or emotions, individuals miss out on opportunities for growth and learning and may become stuck in a cycle of avoidance that perpetuates their distress. By developing greater acceptance and willingness to experience difficult emotions and sensations, and by focusing on their values rather than their avoidance, people can develop greater psychological flexibility and resilience, allowing them to live a more fulfilling and meaningful life. Now to present moment versus past or future. In ACT, the focus is on living in the present moment rather than dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. However, this does not mean that the past and future are ignored altogether. Instead, ACT teaches individuals to develop a new relationship with their thoughts and memories so that they can be fully present in the here and now, while also acknowledging and learning from their past and planning for their future. In ACT, the past is seen as a source of learning and growth, rather than a place to dwell on regrets or ruminate on negative experiences. Clients are encouraged to accept their past experiences, while also recognizing that they do not define who they are in the present. They are also encouraged to focus on the lessons learned from past experiences, and to use these lessons to inform their present actions and decisions. By developing a new relationship with their thoughts and memories, and by focusing on the present moment while also learning from the past and planning for the future, clients can develop greater psychological flexibility and resilience, allowing them to live a more fulfilling and meaningful life. Now to cognitive diffusion versus cognitive fusion. Cognitive fusion is a key concept in ACT, which refers to the tendency of individuals to become overly identified with their thoughts and beliefs, and to view them as accurate representations of reality. This can lead to emotional distress, as individuals become fused with negative or self-critical thoughts, and may struggle to disengage from them. In ACT, cognitive fusion is seen as a barrier to psychological flexibility, which is the ability to adapt to changing circumstances, and to choose actions that are consistent with one's values, even in the presence of difficult thoughts or emotions. To overcome cognitive fusion, ACT therapists work with clients to develop greater awareness and acceptance of their thoughts, rather than trying to eliminate or control them. This involves learning to observe thoughts without getting caught up in them, and developing a new relationship with thoughts that allows for greater psychological flexibility and resilience. For example, if a client is struggling with anxious thoughts, an ACT therapist might encourage them to practice mindfulness of their thoughts, observing them without getting caught up in their content or trying to control them. They might also work with the client to identify their values, and to choose actions that are consistent with those values, even in the presence of anxious thoughts or feelings. By developing greater awareness and acceptance of their thoughts, and by focusing on their values rather than their cognitive fusion, clients can develop greater psychological flexibility and resilience. Self as context versus self as content is a little tricky. Try to think of self as context as a member of an orchestra, while self as content is a person in the company of himself. In ACT, the concept of self as content refers to the thoughts, feelings, and experiences that individuals have about themselves. This aspect of self is sometimes referred to as the narrative self, or the story of self, and is seen as the part of the individual that is shaped by past experiences, social conditioning, and cultural influences. Self as content is an important concept in ACT, as it can sometimes lead to psychological inflexibility, as individuals become overly identified with their thoughts and feelings about themselves, and struggle to disengage from them. To address self as content, ACT therapists work with clients to develop greater awareness and acceptance of their thoughts and feelings about themselves, while also recognizing that these thoughts and feelings do not define them as individuals. This involves recognizing the stories and narratives that they have constructed about themselves, and learning to observe them without getting caught up in them. ACT therapists may also work with clients to explore their values and to identify the behaviors and actions that are consistent with those values. This involves recognizing that thoughts and feelings about oneself are not always accurate or reliable indicators of what is important, and learning to make choices based on their values rather than on their thoughts or emotions. So, how does lack of direction play out? In ACT, the concept of lack of direction refers to the sense of feeling lost or uncertain about one's life path or goals. This can lead to feelings of anxiety, depression, and a lack of motivation, as individuals struggle to find meaning and purpose in their lives. To address lack of direction, ACT therapists work with clients to explore their values and to identify the behaviors and actions that are consistent with those values. This involves recognizing that values are not the same as goals, but rather represent the qualities and characteristics that individuals want to embody in their lives. Once clients have identified their values, ACT therapists may work with them to develop specific, actionable goals that are consistent with those values. This may involve breaking down larger goals into smaller, more manageable steps, and focusing on the process of working towards those goals, rather than solely on the outcome. ACT therapists may also work with clients to cultivate a sense of mindfulness and present moment awareness, helping them to focus on the here and now rather than getting caught up in worries or fears about the future. By developing a sense of direction that is grounded in their values and in the present moment, clients can develop greater psychological flexibility and resilience, allowing them to navigate the challenges and uncertainties of life with greater confidence and purpose. The last part is being inactive or stuck. In ACT, the concept of inaction or being stuck refers to the feeling of being trapped or unable to move forward in one's life. This can manifest as a lack of motivation, indecisiveness, or a sense of being stuck in a particular situation or pattern of behavior. To address inaction or feeling stuck, ACT therapists work with clients to identify and explore the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that may be contributing to these feelings. This involves recognizing and accepting difficult thoughts and emotions, without getting caught up in them or allowing them to control one's actions. ACT therapists may also work with clients to develop greater awareness of their values and to identify the behaviors and actions that are consistent with those values. This may involve breaking down larger goals into smaller, more manageable steps and focusing on the process of taking action toward those goals, rather than solely on the outcome. ACT therapists may also use experiential exercises to help clients develop greater awareness of their physical sensations and to learn to observe and accept those sensations without getting caught up in them or trying to push them away. By developing greater psychological flexibility and resilience, clients can learn to take meaningful action toward their goals, even in the presence of difficult thoughts and emotions. This can lead to a greater sense of empowerment and purpose in their lives, allowing them to move past feelings of inaction or being stuck and towards a more fulfilling and meaningful life. And that concludes our journey through the Hexaflex. All 12 options have been covered. The next step will be to look at relational frame theory and see how that relates to ACT. Until the next video, take care. I hope this was understandable, and if you have questions or comments, please let me know. And don't forget to like and subscribe.